In this crash tutorial, I'm going to tell you what is PyTorch, the key features that you should know, and then we'll put everything together to code a neural network. Let's go. PyTorch is a Python deep learning framework. That means it provides you the structure and tools to code neural networks in Python. And that's where the main focus of PyTorch is, coding neural networks. It doesn't help you so much in the beginning with data cleaning. It does do a little bit of feature engineering, and it does do a little bit of productionization at the end. The main focus is really in the middle of the workflow, model development of neural networks. Now let's quickly define some of its key features, and then you'll see them all put together in the coding example at the end. Datasets and DataLoaders. These are two PyTorch classes that help you manage your data. A dataset you can think of as representing your data. If you have data inside of your Jupyter notebook, or you have data on your computer somewhere else, you can use the dataset to interact with the data and get it. Now, once you have your dataset, you can put it inside of a data loader, and then a data loader will feed you batches of your data at a time. The reason that's useful is because when you're training a neural network, it uses batches of data during each iteration loop of training. The next important feature are tensors. You can think of them as multi-dimensional arrays. Now I want to quickly show you what they look like, because dealing with tensors and tensor dimensions is one of the most common places people get bugs in their code. Here I'm defining a really simple tensor. To create it, all I'm doing is passing an array into torch.tensor. Let's see what the shape looks like. There you go. Now this is what a typical data set might look like, where you have rows of data. Let's look at the dimensions here. You can see we have 8 rows, and each row has 3 values. Previously, I mentioned that data loaders give you batches of data. So let's see what a tensor might look like when that happens. Here, I've broken up our previous data set into a few different batches. Let's see what the shape looks like. So there's 4 batches. Each one has 2 rows of our data set, and we know our data set has 3 values. So now you can kind of see how dealing with these dimensions can get a little bit tricky when you're coding. The last thing that I want to tell you about tensors is that operations can be performed on them on GPUs instead of CPUs. This makes the operations go a lot faster, and that's really important for neural networks because they take a long time to train. And speaking of neural networks, that's the next key feature, the models or neural networks that you can create in PyTorch. I like to think of PyTorch of having 3 different levels of their models. There's pre-trained ones that you can just download and use. There's simple frameworks that you can use to make it easier to develop the models. And then there's the module class that you can inherit and create your neural network completely from scratch. When you're using one of the simple frameworks like the sequential framework or building it from scratch, PyTorch provides you with a bunch of different layers and activation functions that you can use. For example, they have the LSTM layer, the convolutional layers, and simple fully connected layers, and activation functions like the value activation function. In our code example, we're going to build it completely from scratch. Now let's talk about Autograd, or automatic differentiation. This is really important for training neural networks. Whenever you create a tensor, you can enable Autograd on it. And that means that PyTorch is going to track every single operation that happens on those tensors, and then it can use those operations to calculate gradients. So why is that useful? When neural networks are being trained, it uses gradients to update the model's parameters. So the model's parameters are going to be a tensor where Autograd is enabled, and then PyTorch will use that to update them during training. And now the last key feature I want to talk about is CUDA support. Earlier I mentioned that operations can be formed on tensors on GPUs, and CUDA is how your computer interacts with the GPUs that your computer has. For example, PyTorch will ask your computer to copy your data to a GPU, and if you don't know, GPUs are much faster than CPUs because they can do operations in parallel. Now let's look at a really simple coding example that puts everything we talked about together. But real quick, I'd like to invite you to join my monthly models newsletter. Every month, I distill everything that I've been up to into a single monthly newsletter and send it straight to your email so that you can have it and look through it on your own time. I hope to see you in there. Okay, so I've got my Google Colab notebook here, and the first thing I want to do is enable a GPU runtime. Let me click save, and there we go. Now let's go to the first cell block. Here, all I'm doing is using scikit-learn to create some blobs of data or clusters that we're going to train our neural network to find. So there's going to be 2 features, which means 2 axes on our graph, and then 2 centers, so 2 clusters, and we're going to create 1,000 data points. And then here, I'm just creating the train and test split. Let's run this. Okay, so this is what our data looks like. As you can see, there's 2 axes and 2 different clusters. Let's move on. All right, now we're getting into some PyTorch. You can see I've import PyTorch. Google Colab already has PyTorch installed, but if you go to the PyTorch documentation, they have really good instructions for setting it up by yourself. So in this cell block, I'm going to take the data that we just created and put it into these tensor objects. Then I'm going to take the tensor objects and put them into a tensor dataset. So now this dataset will represent our data. And then we'll take the dataset and put it into our data loader, which will then help feed batches of our data to our neural network while we're training it. And I do this for the training data and the testing data. Here I'm passing in our training features and training labels to create the dataset. And then here I pass in that dataset. I set a batch size of 32. So while we're training, the data loader is going to feed 32 data points to our neural network in each batch. And shuffle just means it's going to shuffle up all the data points before it starts giving batches. Let's run this code. Done. Now let's create our first neural network from scratch. I've called the neural network the cluster buster because it's going to find our 2 clusters for us. When creating a neural network from scratch, you need to inherit from the neural network module like this, and you need to have this line which inherits from the neural network module's init function. So typically in your init function, you are going to define all of the layers and activation functions that you're going to use. And then in the forward function, this is where you actually use all of those layers. So our neural network is going to be really simple. We're going to have one layer with a ReLU activation function, and then we're going to pass it through another layer to get the outputs. And as you can see, that's exactly what I've coded here. It takes the data, passes it into layer 1, passes that through our ReLU, and passes that into layer 2, and outputs it. That's it. Pretty simple. Now let's look at creating the model right here on this line. You can see I've said the input size is 2 because we have 2 features in our data set. Remember that there were 2 axes. The hidden size is 3, so we're going to have 3 nodes. And then the output size is 2 because we want to classify which group or which cluster the data points are in. And there's 2 clusters. And now in order to talk about this line, I want to scroll up for a second. Here, what I'm doing is I'm checking if a GPU is available. Since we initially enabled the GPU in our runtime, this is going to output CUDA. But if CUDA was not available, we were not using a GPU, then it would use CPU. So that's what device is. Now scrolling back down, here, I'm taking the model that we've created and I'm moving it to the device. So this is going to put it onto our GPU using CUDA if the GPU is available. In PyTorch, if you want to do operations on the GPU, you have to move the model and the data onto the GPU. And if you want to do operations on the CPU, you have to make sure that they're on the CPU. So that's what I'm doing here. Now moving on, I'm defining a criterion or loss function. This is a really common loss function when dealing with classification problems. And here I'm setting up our optimizer. If you're familiar with gradient descent, Atom is just an adaptation of gradient descent. And into it, I'm passing our model's parameters and this learning rate here. Now let's run it. Let's look at the output for a second. So at the end here, I've printed out all of the model's parameters. These are all basically going to be randomly initialized right now because we haven't done any training. But the important thing that I wanted to show you is that you can see requires grad equals true. So our Autograd or automatic differentiation is enabled on the model's parameters. And this is how it's going to track all of the gradients during learning and then update the parameters by using the optimizer that we passed the model's parameters into. Now let's see how this all fits together by looking at a training and evaluation loop. So at a high level, I have a training loop and a testing loop. The training loop is going to go through all of our training data and update our model's parameters. Then the test loop is going to go through our test data and do a bunch of evaluations and print them out so that we can see if our model is improving on the test data. So let's walk through the code a little bit more closely now. I've defined the number of epochs as 15, which means we're going to pass through all of our data 15 times. So we're going to loop for 15 here. And then within each loop, so within each pass through all of our data, we're going to do our training loop and testing loop. Looking closer at the training loop, first I call model.train to tell PyTorch that we're about to do training. Sometimes when you create a model, you have certain things that you want to only do during training and not do during testing. So this will make sure PyTorch actually does those things here. And later on, you can see we call model.eval for the test loop, which means it won't do those things. Now right up here, you can see I'm using the data loader to get batches of data. So this is going to be a batch of our features and a batch of our labels. And then here, I'm moving the data to our device. So in our case, this is going to put it on the GPU where our model already is. Then I'm going to do the forward pass, which is going to create predictions on a batch of data. And then it's going to pass those predictions and the labels to calculate our loss using the criterion of cross entropy loss, which we defined up here. Now that a lot of operations have been performed using our model's parameters, we can now calculate the gradients and update all the model's parameters. So right here, I'm calling the backward function on the output of our criterion to compute the gradients. And then I'm using our atom optimizer to update the model's parameters by calling the step function. And this line right here just means that we clear out any gradient calculations from the previous loop. Each time you want to clear it out and calculate new gradients. And that's it for the training loop. It'll go through every single batch of our data and update the model's parameters. And then it will do that in total 15 times because there's 15 epochs. Now looking at the test loop, like I said before, here we're calling model.eval to make sure it doesn't do anything that we've defined in our neural network that we don't want it to. And then on this line, we also need to tell it to not calculate gradients because we're just testing and we don't want to update the model's parameters during these steps. So right here, I'm going to loop through all the batches of test data, move them to the device, get some predictions on the test data and calculate the loss. It's going to loop through the entire data set here and it's going to do that 15 times. And lastly, at the very bottom here, I'm going to print out the epoch number 1 through 15. And then for each epoch, it will print the training loss and the test loss. This is how you can get those values on each criterion that we got. Now let's run it. There we go. So you can see here all the epochs that we went through and that the training loss was decreasing and also the testing loss was decreasing, which is great. Now let's visualize how our model did. Here I'm turning off gradient tracking and I'm passing in the test features to get some predictions. I had to make sure that the test features were on our GPU device. And then here I'm moving the predictions back to the CPU so that we can print them out and visualize them down here. This line is a little bit tricky, but basically it returns the index on each row that had the highest probability. So if the highest probability was in the first index in the row, then it would return 0. If it was in the second index, it would return 1. This is how we're going to determine which class had the higher probability. Class 0 or cluster 0 or cluster 1. Now in this block of code here, I'm just visualizing the training data. And then on this block, I'm visualizing the training data and the test data with our predictions. And I'm marking them with X. Let's see what this looks like. Here is just our training data. And now going down, you can see here is our testing data. And it looks like it did really good. Every single X in this cluster is yellow, and every single X in this cluster is purple. If our algorithm did not do so well, then you might see some purple X's in here, and you see some yellow X's in here. But everything looks pretty good. In previous iterations, I did see that happen, so this time it did well. Let me restart our runtime and try again with less epochs. So here I've set the epochs to 5 instead of 15. You can see the training loss and the test loss did not get as good as before. Let's get our predictions. And there we go. Yeah, you see it did really poorly here. Interestingly, it did pretty well on this cluster. Now that you have a high level understanding, I would recommend solidifying it more by watching the video on the screen, where I do sentiment analysis of movies using an LSTM neural network. I'll see you in the next video.